All right, let's dive into one of the most powerful books ever written on trading, Stock Market Wizards by Jack Schwager. We're going to unpack this incredible little story that really gets to the heart of what separates the absolute legends from, well, the rest of us. And it all starts with a simple question. What in the world does something as small, as totally mundane as picking a piece of lint off your jacket have to do with becoming a world-class, top-tier stock trader? It sounds completely unrelated, I know, but stick with me because this one tiny detail is the key that unlocks absolutely everything. And this brings us right to the core lesson of the whole book. It's a simple, personal story that Schwager tells, and it's all about a plane. So Schwager tells the story about flying out of a tiny little airport on Martha's Vineyard. The first time, he was super confident, he knew how long it would take, so he cut it way too close, got stuck behind a slow car, and boom, missed his flight. Annoying, sure, but you learn your lesson, right? Well, the second time is where it gets really good. So having learned from his mistake, he shows up a whole 30 minutes early. He's sitting there waiting, and he notices some lint on his blazer. He starts picking it off. He hears the announcement for Section 1 to board, but his ticket says Section 11, so he thinks, oh, I've got plenty of time, and he goes right back to focusing on this piece of lint, totally absorbed in the task. And then it hits him. He looks up, and the waiting room is completely empty. He sprints to the gate in a panic, and the agent tells him that his plane, the Section 11 plane, was actually a totally different flight, leaving in 5 minutes. He almost missed it. And that moment of sheer terror taught him a lesson that became the core of his trading philosophy. And it's right here. If you're too busy picking the lint off your jacket, you're liable to miss the plane. This is a perfect illustration of a trap we can call market myopia. It's when you get so obsessed with the tiny, insignificant details, the lint, that you completely lose sight of the really important thing, the plane. In trading, that's like spending hours analyzing one company's quarterly report while completely ignoring the fact that the entire market sector is about to crash. You're focused on the lint, and you're about to miss the plane. Now, this isn't just a clever saying. Let's see how this plays out in the real world with one of the traders from the book, a guy named Stuart Walton, who was a total accidental trader and learned this lesson in the most painful way possible. You see, Walton never, ever wanted to be a trader. His dream was to be an artist, a cartoonist, a writer, something creative. But life happens, right? Those dreams didn't work out, so he got an MBA just to make a living and kind of fell backwards into the world of finance. It was his dream versus his reality, and reality was winning. And his first job was an absolute nightmare. He was basically a glorified gopher on a foreign exchange desk. He just got screamed at all day long. And it made him hate trading. He just saw it as this loud, aggressive, brute force world with no real thought behind it. So, of course, like so many people, his very first attempt at trading for himself was a complete and utter disaster. It was a brutal lesson in just how little he actually knew. Oh man, it's a textbook story of how things go wrong. His girlfriend worked at Liz Claiborne and told him the company was doing great. So he borrows 10 grand from his dad, buys the stock, and makes a quick profit. And here's the classic trap. That easy win made him feel like a genius. He got cocky. He started taking tips from everybody, even the guy delivering coffee. The result? He was completely wiped out in 3 weeks. So then, he had to make that awful call to his dad to tell him he'd lost all the money. And you'd think his father would be furious, right? But his dad's response was just incredible. He said this. He basically said, I figured you'd lose it, but what I'm proud of is that you had an idea and you had the guts to act on it. What a lesson. But that failure didn't just magically turn him into a trading wizard. Nope. What followed was years of him just drifting through the industry, which led him right to the edge of total burnout. He moved over to the bond trading desk, thinking maybe it would be a bit more civilized. But over time, he grew to hate that too. He just saw bonds as a simple commodity, and their daily moves felt totally random to him, like a coin flip. He was just completely disillusioned with the whole thing. And this quote just perfectly sums up his mindset at the time. In the morning meetings, when all his colleagues were giving these super detailed analyses, Walton would just say, I think the market is going down today. And when they asked him why, he'd say, because it went up yesterday. To him, all their detailed analysis, all that link picking, it was all just noise. The burnout finally hit a breaking point in this unbelievable moment. One day, he just walked into the office and quit. He couldn't stand the thought of trading another bond. Later, that exact same day, his wife called him to say that she had also quit her job, completely out of the blue. It was like a sign from the universe. They packed it all in, took 6 months off, and just traveled to completely reset their lives. And it was that reset, that massive step back from the brink, that finally let him see clearly and develop the perspective he needed to become a true market wizard. So what happened after this huge life change? Well, the results are just staggering. For 8 straight years, Stuart Walton achieved an average annual compounded return of 115%. Just let that sink in. 115% a year, on average, for 8 years. He went from a burned-out cynic who hated his job to one of the most successful traders out there. So how did he do it? It was simple. He finally stopped picking the lint off his jacket and started looking for the plain. He learned to see the whole picture, to focus on the overall market and the sector, not just one little stock. He learned to look beyond the numbers, to the story behind them. And, maybe most importantly, he started planning his entire trade, not just how to get in, but how and when to get out. He learned that managing his risk was the plane, and finding that perfect entry point, that was just lint. And that brings us to the final, most important question. Because this story, this parable, it's not just about trading. It's about how we focus our attention in everything we do. So I'll leave you with this. Take a second and think about your own life, your career, your goals. What's the length that you're getting distracted by? And what is the plane you absolutely, positively cannot afford to miss?